Okay, I think we can start now. Thank you so much, EJ. Welcome, everyone. Hello, everyone, and good morning, afternoon, and evening. And on behalf of ISAAA and our donors, the DA Biotech Program Office and our Biotech Coalition of the Philippines, and our partners, the Two Blades Foundation and U.S. Department of Agriculture, I would like to welcome you to the virtual global launch of ISAA's Brief 56, entitled Breaking Barriers with Breeding, a primer on new breeding innovations for food security. I am Dr. Dora Romero Aldemira, Director of ISAAA Southeast Asia Center and ISAA's Global Knowledge Center on Crop Biotechnology. And I'm a trained scientist and currently a science communicator honed by ISAA's founder, Dr. Clive James, and our ISAA's team of writers, editors, and creative artists. This ISAAA Brief 56 is another addition to ISAA's record of publishing high quality and excellent publication materials on agricultural biotechnology. Since 1996, the ISAAA Yellow Book has prominently featured studies and narratives on biotechnology, including intellectual property rights, diagnosing crop diseases, socioeconomic impacts of biotech, biotech communication, farmer uptake and biotech crops, and the highly cited global biotech crop adoption, among others. So through the more than 25 years of ISAAA, these materials serve as primary references in raising awareness and understanding on biotechnology globally. ISAAA recognized the importance of publishing a primer on NBI, or new breeding innovations, to quench the dearth of knowledge by the general public, the policymakers, and the journalists. Thus, following the ISAAA tradition of providing an easy-to-understand agri-biotechnology narratives, we offer you ISAAA Brief 56, an invitational publication that looks at the science and application of genome or gene editing in crops and livestock. Regulatory and policy considerations, prospects in Asia and Africa, communicating new breeding innovations, and lastly, how this technology contribute to food security. We have invited prominent experts who wrote extensive and excellent narratives on their topics, coupled with ISAA's brand of editing, formatting, and creative design. So in today's 1-hour webinar launch, we will feature the opening remarks, short video messages of some chapter authors, a keynote speech from Dr. Paul Tang, a short video to preview the Yellow Book, and the closing remarks. We are grateful for the funding support of DABPO and Biotech Coalition of the Philippines, as well as the partnership of the Two Blades Foundation and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. The development of this publication and this webinar launch are in support of the Philippine National Biotech Week, held in the last week of November. So with us today are some of the authors. So we may have Dr. Maha, please wave your hand. Please wave. Dr. Gabi Romero. Dr. Justin Bredlau, please turn on your camera. Dr. Margaret Corambo, please wave. And Dr. Diane, oh, you were able to make it. Hi, Diane. And of course, our chair, Dr. Paul Tang. Please wave your hand. Thank you so much for joining us. So this publication is free and can be downloaded at our website anytime after this launch. So to give us the opening remarks, let us welcome the ever vibrant, dynamic, and all-time ISAAA believer, Ms. Annalyn Lopez, the Director Coordinator of the DA Biotech Program Office. Take it away, Anne.
Thank you, Ma'am Ola, for that generous introduction. A pleasant day to everyone participating from different parts of the world It is such a delight for us to have this launch, and we are very appreciative of your presence virtually. Technology and innovations continue to revolutionize food production system and agriculture. Breeding technologies have always been providing us with better seeds, and several other agricultural innovations continue to provide better solutions and greater choice for farmers and consumers around the world. Agricultural innovation is one of the key strategies employed by our department, the Department of Agriculture, in order to transform the sector into a modernized and resilient pillar of the national economy. We at the DA always hear our Agriculture Secretary say that we need to scale up innovations for agriculture and fisheries to improve the sector's capacity to provide for a growing and increasingly urbanized population, as well as empower Filipino farmers and fishers. The success of GM corn commercialization in the country since 2003 improved the productivity of the corn sector, ably supported the livestock and poultry sector, and transformed farmers' lives. We are equally hopeful of the beneficial impact of the commercial propagation of golden rice in complementing current interventions to address malnutrition among children and pregnant women because of vitamin A deficiency. Now we have plant breeding innovations or new breeding techniques. These advanced tools, including gene editing, enable the efficient development of new varieties of crops and animals that are high yielding, more adaptable to extreme climatic conditions, more resilient to pests and diseases, and more excuse me, and more nutritious in a way that is faster and more precise than conventional breeding techniques. Our keen interest in new breeding techniques or plant breeding innovations led us to commissioning a study in 2018, which looked into the international regulatory landscape and applicable domestic laws. And this served as a reference to initiate policy discussions at the Philippines National Committee on Biosafety, or NCBP. In April of this year, NCBP issued its resolution on the regulation of plants and plant products derived from the use of plant breeding innovations and new breeding techniques. This is resolution number 001 series of 2020. The resolution adopts a policy that products of these advanced techniques which do not possess a novel combination of genetic material will not be covered by the existing regulations for genetically modified products. Pursuant to this resolution, the DA or Department of Agriculture has formulated the Memorandum Circular on the rules and procedures for the determination of products of PBIs or new breeding techniques, whether or not GM regulations would apply on a case-by-case basis. This draft circular is currently under legal scrubbing. These agricultural innovations offer numerous benefits for the environment, farmers, and consumers in terms of food security, nutrition, economic growth, and productivity. Communicating effectively these innovations and their benefits is critical in orchestrating a policy environment from the national down to the local levels that is needed to facilitate their development and uptake. More importantly, effective communication empowers stakeholders to make informed decisions. We commend ISAAA for being a credible source of publications on biotechnology in more than 2 decades. We sincerely value our long-time partnership in making sure that we work together as one in cascading factual information to our stakeholders and the general public. This primer is a welcome addition to the long list of useful information materials on biotechnology aimed at raising public awareness and appreciation to new breeding innovations, their prospects, and contribution to food security. Lastly, we look forward to continued prolific partnership with ISAAA in promoting the rational use of agricultural innovations for enhanced productivity and sustainability. Thank you, and again, a good day to everyone.
Thank you so much, Director Ann, for your insights on the Philippines' support and acceptance of biotech, including new breeding innovations. So again, let's give Director Ann a virtual round of applause. Now, let us proceed with the video. So let us now watch the videos of some of our international experts who have written chapters in the brief. So we have a few of them right here. So EJ, please play the video.
Thank you for the invitation to provide a few remarks on the primer chapter From Labs to Farmers, New Breeding Choices for Better Livestock. I'm Justin Breadlaw, a Science and Technology Policy Fellow in the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Office of the Chief Scientist, and one of the co-authors of the chapter. This section provides an overview of new breeding innovations in animals by placing genome editing in context with other agricultural breeding techniques that modify DNA. We provide a brief overview of the history of animal biotechnology, current methods, and applications. People have practiced the selection, breeding, and modification of livestock since the early times of livestock domestication. Farmers and breeders are always refining and creating new selection methods to modify animals to increase the precision or accuracy of their ability to select for desired traits, such as temperament for domestication, milk or meat production, hardiness and resistance to disease, or size and strength. Techniques have evolved over time, but with similar goals. Whether we're talking about mass selection, which has been around for centuries, pedigree or progeny selection, marker-assisted selection, genetic engineering, or genome editing, the goal of livestock breeding is to change genetic makeups to produce new variations of animals that have improvements on traits that are valued by farmers and consumers. Genome editing is just the latest method in this continuum of genetic modification. This method allows us to make precise alterations, like a builder adding details to this blueprint to improve a house. For example, by adding a door between the kitchen and dining room to improve functionality of a house, and adding a sliding door for more natural lighting and an entrance to a patio to facilitate entertaining outdoors. Traits can be altered with single nucleotide edits or introduced from other breeds of the same species. This is equivalent to what is done by conventional breeding, but this technique is more targeted and speeds up the process by decades. For example, researchers are using genome editing to introduce disease resistance traits into animals. This is critical for the fight against African swine fever, tuberculosis, foot and mouth disease, avian influenza, and many other deadly diseases. Other traits reduce the environmental footprint of livestock and create animals that are more resilient to hotter temperatures, which is particularly needed in tropical regions. By combining traits from different breeds for disease resistance, heat tolerance, and productivity, animals become more resilient and productive, which will improve food security in many regions. This can also improve animal welfare. There are many other applications, from reducing allergens in food to improving the efficiency of vaccine production using chicken eggs. Genome editing provides the opportunity for traits to be targeted and introduced into local breeds to meet regional needs. Access to the best selection of tools in the breeding toolbox is crucial to address future challenges, meet sustainability goals, and increase productivity. This publication contains many examples of the amazing scientific advances that have the potential to make agriculture more sustainable and provide solutions to many of the challenges farmers globally face every day. It is an excellent educational resource for future farmers, researchers, and the general public.
South and Southeast Asian countries are centers of biodiversity that can be maximized through the use of biotechnology. But after 2 decades of biotechnology, only 2 countries have extensively grown GM crops, India and the Philippines. Strangely, many, if not all of these countries are already direct users of GM products for food and feed industries. And also strangely, perhaps half of these countries have already done biotech R&D for the past decade or so. So that's the mystery that my article tries to look into. Why some countries took the fast approach and the other countries took the cautious approach with regards to biotechnology. Now, with the power of gene editing and its advantages over the classical GMOs, I believe most of these countries will have to reconsider their approach and probably make minor or major adjustments. And considering the issues that preoccupied the cautious countries and also the benefits that were enjoyed by the proactive countries, I tried to forecast in the article what could be their next steps with regards to NBT.
In Africa, new breeding innovations are some of the important tools the continent is eyeing to improve agricultural productivity for its crops and livestock sector. Experiences from those countries that have taken lead in applying new breeding innovations, like the Americas, Argentina, Brazil, are already showing very promising results. As we have highlighted in this brief, the primary focus on application of new breeding tools for sub-Saharan Africa must respond to the key agricultural challenges that are bedeviling this continent. Key among them, pest and disease infestation with climate change and also drought due to drastic climatic conditions and changes. So African researchers have already taken up the tools, and we believe it will require a lot of consultations, it will require a lot of consolidation, and so by capturing what is happening in Africa by our researchers, we believe that this is going to be an important tool and an important knowledge product for building the confidence and also getting our policymakers and industry players locally to invest in this research to bring it to commercialization. At the Afri Center, we recently, through the Africa Biennial Biosciences Communication Symposium, ABBC, launched the Africa Coalition on Communicating about Genome Editing. And I'm calling upon African researchers to register their projects so that in the next brief, we are definitely going to take a bigger chapter. The trailblazer projects in Africa include development of striga-resistant sorghum that is addressing a very destructive weed, the striga, that affects sugarcane, rice, maize, and many other important crops in Africa. We also have the maize leather necrosis disease, another very devastating disease for the corn sector, and it is also getting into other crops. In the livestock sector, we have seen good progress in research on trypanosomes resistant cattle and goats, and moving further, we are also seeing other traits, for example, heat tolerance in dairy cattle. Discussions about how the new breeding tools are going to be regulated in Africa have already kicked off, and there are two lines of thought. One is developing guidelines that look at genome editing products or the end products, whether they have a novel trait, and others where we already have, we don't have the presence or detectable novel traits in the end products. And it is clear that a number of countries, for example, Kenya, has already developed guidelines that clearly differentiate that products of genome editing that do not end with a novel trait should be regulated as conventional products, while those that end with a novel trait should go through the same applications of regulatory system in place for genetically modified crops. Nigeria has also taken up development of the regulatory system by incorporating genome editing in its Biosafety Act, and the Biosafety Agency is now preparing to develop guidelines to help in moving research in that country, where a lot of researchers are already starting their basic research on genome editing. So the conversations are vibrant, and we have seen other countries like Ethiopia, Malawi, Uganda, and even South Africa, where there's a lot of negotiation on exactly how best to place Africa at the forefront as a front runner, so that we don't end up with the same mode of debates and prolonged discussions, pull and push, experienced with genetic modification. We appreciate the teams that have put together this brief, which is going to be a catalyst for bringing together players in the field of new breeding innovations to ensure that we are building coalitions of the winning teams that are going to make science matter by ensuring that we are delivering products faster and for the benefit of all our global citizenry.
If some of the undesirable traits in crops, such as highly perishable, susceptibility to diseases, and browning, can be deleted by editing the genes, shall we do it? How about inserting beneficial traits like higher yield, resistant to pests, drought tolerant, and adding some nutrients? Shall we add these genes? What more if this editing is cost effective, safe, and can be done in a very precise manner? This application can support all the other currently available applications in agriculture to ensure food security, nutrition security, and reduce wastage, leading to sustainable production of food. This is done using genome editing tools. This is the next generation of genetic modification, only that not all of them are GMOs, meaning they not necessarily have foreign genes. This allows them to be exempted from regulations by many countries, which means cost is going to be reduced, and this allows public sector and also smaller companies to participate in developing new varieties of crops. So activists who were claiming that foods should not be monopolized by huge multinational companies were true to their cause should support genome editing. Many countries which were very stringent about genetic modification are now looking at genome editing in a friendlier manner. This is a good sign. My chapter discusses how we can improve messaging for genome editing, learning from our past experience dealing with genetic modification. Read my chapter, Communicating Genome Editing, Editing the Bloopers from the Past Communication Strategies.
Thank you very much. So let's give our speakers, our authors, a big round of applause. We got a lot of pointers on what we are looking forward in our brief, and I hope that you will enjoy reading it too, as well as when we were editing it. But suffice it to say, I'm very happy that even if we have only a few chapter authors who were able to provide us the videos, we will be provided with a more encompassing keynote speech by our board chair. So at this point, let me introduce to you our keynote speaker. So Dr. Paul Tang is the Managing Director and Dean of the National Institute of Education, as well as an Adjunct Senior Fellow for Non-Traditional Studies at Nanyang Technological University of Singapore. He is an adjunct professor of Murdoch University in Australia and honorary fellow of CIRCA. So let us welcome Dr. Paul Tang for his keynote speech. Dr. Tang, please.
Well, thank you very much, Ola, and greetings from Singapore. And a big thank you, I think, for those who have logged in this morning to show support for this launch. I think it is indeed very early in the morning for some of you, so thank you, a very big thank you indeed. Well, it's a real pleasure for me to participate in this launch of a very important new piece of information on new breeding innovations. As we all know, the world continues to face major challenges to feed and clothe itself. And these challenges have only increased in intensity and frequency. I think we have evidence of this. The latest example is the big series of tornadoes in North America, which I'm sure will also have some impact on agriculture. Now, the climate summit, which I need to mention, COP26 in November, also reaffirmed the large impact climate change is likely to have on food security. And of course, pre the COVID pandemic, which we're all living with, the world was already facing many, many threats to its food security. These threats only became more evident during the pandemic. So to deal with these multiple threats to food security, especially the different dimensions of food security, not just the production side, but the access and nutrition and safety, we really need new technologies and also new mindsets to use these new technologies to produce more and to reduce losses. There are two parts of the same equation. And experience has shown that the first step in knowing how to use the technology to solve problems is to understand it, especially in the case of this exciting new set of technologies which innovate plant breeding, as is the content of this new primer. Of course, new breeding innovations, we all hope, will have many applications to improve our crops and animals. Some of these have been mentioned this morning, seeds with high yielding potential, resistance to stresses, and also, in the process, give these varieties to farmers in a very expeditious manner. I think these are all very important happenings and factors. I think we all know and appreciate that NBIs have potential indeed to result in food products that can delay decay and in the process reduce the amount of losses. And this is one of one of the matters really concern a lot of us at the moment. We're just losing too much of the food that we produce for human consumption. Right? One estimate puts it at approximately 1.3 billion tons a year that is either unused or discarded globally. Okay? Now, at the risk of repeating what others have said, I think it's useful for me to highlight again, some of the traits which smallholder farmers in particular will value, okay, and will derive benefit if we give them seeds, right, using the latest science and technology, in this case, the NBIs. Firstly, obviously seeds with higher yield potential. Okay, even in the case of rice, I used to work at Erie, we're already starting to talk about the yield plateau. Okay, and then for some other crops, about declining yield levels. So we're seeing now with NBIs opportunities to use existing crop genomes to increase yield potential. And one of the fastest ways I will put to you to help farmers recover more of their yield is to have higher yield potential. Of course, accompanied by many other traits. Yeah? And this will help us raise production levels overall throughout the world, and perhaps even make Asia, less dependent on imports from the West. The second group are seeds with tolerance to environmental abiotic stresses. And I mentioned COP26. I think we need traits that tolerate flooding or submergence, drought, and both of which are known to be multi-genetically determined and have been very difficult to breed using traditional phenotypic breeding and screening. There's much hope that the use of NBIs, such as gene editing alone or in combination with other techniques, may quicken the development of genotypes with strong tolerance to environmental stresses. The other aspect of environment tolerant traits we want to mention is really associated with breeding genotypes, which are more water use and nutrient use efficient, okay, to achieve the same or faster levels of growth and development. Okay? So it's not just tolerance to the stresses because of climate change, but also building into plants, crops, animals, the ability, to in fact use less water and less nutrients. So in other words, increasing the water use efficiency and also nutrient use efficiency. And this will become more and more important, especially in the Asian continent. As freshwater resources decline due to pollution or overuse, and also because of the concern with excessive nutrients contaminating our water, our drinking water. So these are two very important traits I will put to you. Should see some good progress with gene editing in particular. Now, of course, more traditionally, resistance to insect pests and diseases, which has been mentioned. And we know that insect pests, diseases, and also weeds can cause anywhere from 30 to 50% of crop losses in many crops. Okay? Traditional breeding, using Mendelian genetics have been successful to a certain extent, with the relatively simple modes of infestation or infection. But with NBIs such as genome editing and also with induced gene silencing, RNAi technique, we see really, accelerated opportunities to build in on the early successes on pest management, new traits that can help us tackle the stresses, the losses caused by pest diseases in a more comprehensive manner. Okay? Now, of course, the next, is not just the kind of production traits, but also nutrition. Right? We talk a lot about nowadays about food security and also nutrition security. Okay? So seeds with modified nutrition value or flavor are going to be a key development, I feel, with genome editing. And this will also become more important, with demographic changes around the world, not just with the aging populations, but also we're seeing in some countries the emergence of a bigger sector amongst the younger populations. Okay? Now, I think we've all heard, of how nutrition insecurity is causing a lot of issues in the younger generations in many countries, stunting and so on. Yeah, and of course, in the Philippines, right? The good news from the Philippines was golden rice. Just one example, using a more, I would say, conventional, traditional technology now, GMOs. But think of what we can do if we can combine multiple, basically, traits in new genotypes that can give us enhanced minerals, and so on and so forth. Really, they can really help us address malnutrition itself. Now, I think Maha also mentioned, the shelf life. And again, I see this as going forward is very important, especially with climate change and with countries that don't have cold chain management in their supply chains. Perishable vegetables, perishable fruits. Okay, so the data shows us that just food loss and waste in supply chains can also be as much as 30%, even before reaching the consumer. And I think we will anticipate the gene editing will enable the development of horticultural crops, especially fruits and so on, with delayed ripening, but vegetables which are protected in some way with higher time for cosmetic value. I mean, you and I know that many of the losses in vegetables is not because of actual decay, but because of the loss of cosmetic value. In other words, the vegetables don't look as good and so on. And there are nowadays, evidence to show that we can in fact preserve the cosmetics, okay, of these vegetables and fruits, and therefore reduce the amount that we throw away. So, so like I said, at the risk of repeating what others have said, I think the benefits to food security from the NBIs are manifold indeed. And we're just starting to see the beginning of the applications. Okay? But to be better than current or older methods of plant breeding, NBIs really need to very clearly demonstrate the value that they have, not just the farmers, but the consumers. Okay? By producing seeds that are easily accessible to those who need them, especially the resource-poor farmers. And that's where I think ISAAA's mission becomes so important, because ultimately our target audience are not just the resource-poor farmers, they're very important, but also the poor consumer. And now increasingly, the urban farmer in cities around the world. Okay? I think the early indications from NBRs are very positive indeed. Okay. And also additionally, the early indications from countries like the US, Australia, Japan, that the new seeds produced through the new breeding innovations may not need to undergo the complicated regulatory approval processes as with older biotechnology. Now, this indeed is going to be so encouraging, I think, to the developers of the new seeds, not just in the public sector, but also in the private sector. Now, some of us know that the private sector obviously has a lot more resources, right, to take seeds to the product development stages than the public sector. So by democratizing, using this modern tool, the process of breeding and product development, we're finally empowering the public sector to be as effective as the private sector, okay, in going through the regulatory process to come up with seeds. In the end, it's the farmer and the consumer who benefits, these two big groups. So just to finish off then this short presentation, ISAAA is indeed honored, and thanks very much to the DA in the Philippines, for example. We're really honored to have been given this opportunity to put this primer together. ISAAA has always championed knowledge sharing, okay, in the cause of improving access to new technologies for farmers. So our hope is that this publication will be our very modest contribution towards this effort. We know we can't do it alone, we need partners. So I'm hoping too that with this primer and in partnership with others, we can take these benefits of NBIs and other technologies to the smallholders in a more expeditious manner. So thank you very much for having participated in this launch. Yeah. Thank you, Ola. Back to you.
Okay. Okay, let's give Dr. Paul Tang a round of applause again. Well, thank you so much, Sir Professor Tang, for an overview of how new breeding innovations can address food security and the challenges for every one of us, all the stakeholders, to see the science, policy considerations, and the need to communicate the benefits and potential of the technology. We saw how Dr. Paul Tang explained the many different benefits that it will come to us, consumers, and also the farmers. So at this point, let us see a video teaser prepared by our very own EJ Azucena with the help of the KC team. Take it away, EJ. With that teaser, it's really a teaser. It's a short video. Let's give EJ and the KC team a round of applause. Thank you so much for the very good effort. We are now going to the closing message. So to close this brief virtual launch, we would like to invite our longtime friend and another all-time ISAAA supporter, the Executive Secretary of the Biotech Coalition of the Philippines, Dr. Abraham Manalo. Abe, please.
Thank you, Ate Ola. So, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everyone, to our dear colleagues from ISAAA. So, the Biotech Coalition of the Philippines is very fortunate to be a partner of ISAAA and the DA Biotech Program Office in the production and publication of this new ISAAA brief. For 25 years, ISAAA has been publishing its iconic ISAAA Yellow Book, the ISAAA Briefs. Actually, we are already missing sorely the annual report on the global adoption of GM crops. And we hope that in the near future, it will be published again. We really hope and pray for that. But now we celebrate. We celebrate the launch of a new and exciting publication, ISAAA Brief number 56, on new breeding innovations at East. It is a tool to serve our country in order to reduce problems associated with food insecurity. We congratulate Paul, Maha, Gabi, Justine, and our dear own Ate Ola, together with her team, Open, Wiwai, Clement, for this successful launch. ISAAA has originally established itself and has been known as the platform for the transfer of technology on modern biotech to developing countries. But with the passing of time, particularly 2.5 decades later, ISAAA itself has evolved. When we speak at the global forefront of biotech IEC, ISAAA has no competition. And for this, we say maraming salamat ISAAA. Now, ISAAA itself is transforming as the science and practice of biotechnology is being transformed. We are happy to note that ISAAA has partnered with like-minded institutions to inform, educate, and communicate on, among others, on synthetic biology, animal biotechnology and its regulations, and now gene editing and on new breeding innovations, which is very timely as Dr. Aldimita and Dr. Paul Tang mentioned, because the Philippines will be issuing, hopefully later this year or early next year, its rules and procedures for plant breeding innovations. ISAAA Brief number 56 is a timely testament to this progressive and expanding role of this institution. The future holds many challenges and much promise. There will be ups and downs, failures and successes. But we, the biotech stakeholders, nationally and globally, are optimistic because we continue to look up to ISAAA as our primary partner in this exciting area of modern biotechnology. Again, congratulations, dear ISAAA.
Thank you so much, Albert. It really warms our heart to hear those words from you. Thank you so much. Before we end, would there be any questions from our audience? We still have a few minutes to spare. Okay, I don't know if, well, I can raise some questions, and we have, luckily, we have our experts with us who can respond.
There's
Please,
one in the question Q&A.
yeah, that I'm going to get to that. So may we encourage some of our participants to put your questions in the Q&A, please? Okay, so there's one from it's anonymous attendee. Gene editing is a limitless process, I think. And can GMO crops or animals be gene edited the same process with non-GMO? Will it still be necessary? We're happy to have Dr. Diane Ray Cahen from USDA, who wrote, and Justin Bredlaw, who wrote the chapter on genome editing for livestock. Would you like to respond to that? Hi, Dan.
Hey, how are you doing? Yes, yes, apologize, it's sort of late here, but one of the challenges, to respond to this is that for certain traits, not all traits, but for certain traits, they can be introduced via conventional breeding, but the time that it may take to introduce those traits, particularly for both plants and animals with longer generations time, can be decades versus one generation. And so that's really something very, I think, important to realize.
Yep.
Yes. Thank you, Diane. Any other questions? For the participants' knowledge, the brief is already uploaded at our website. You can download it for free and share it with your colleagues. And while waiting for other questions, may I read some of the congratulatory messages that are in the chat box. And okay, so there's one from my dear sister-in-law and wife of Gabby, Dr. Maris Romero. Congratulations, ISAAA and the chapter authors. Looking forward to reading this primer. So excited with what genome editing can do to improve our agricultural crops, especially food systems in the Philippines. Stay safe and God bless. So any other questions while we still have time? And also we have participants from many different parts of the world. I see here from Sri Lanka, Ghana, Senegal, of course, the Philippines. We have from Japan, our very own Fusao, Tomita, and our friends in the media like Alin Resurrection, Dr. Bansal from India. Okay, any more questions? Before we, okay, there's another one. Okay, well, this is a question to ISAAA. How can ISAAA help boost traditional breeding, which is necessary to biotech breeding? Actually, we are advocating for all breeding innovations, so especially from the traditional to the current one. That's why in every seminars, in every engagements that we do, we always have the first presentation to focus on the traditional breeding, the current modern biotechnology breeding, and the new innovation. So we're still continuing that, and you can look at our website for more details. We have a primer on that as well, on agricultural biotechnology and conventional breeding. Thank you. Any other? Okay, so I think we have to wind down our virtual launch. So with that, I'd like to give the last closing remarks after Abe. So thank you all for coming to the virtual book launch of the NBI Primer, ISAA's Brief 56. Once again, we'd like to thank the international experts, including Dr. Paul Tang, Dr. Maha, Dr. Margaret Karambu, and Godfrey, Dr. Gabriel Romero, Professor Martin Lema, Dr. Diane Ray Cahen, and Justin Brelau, and Dr. Diana Horvath of Two Blades for writing the chapters. To our board chair and keynote speaker, Dr. Paul Tang. For our donors, thank you so much, DABPO and BCP. To our partners, the Two Blades Foundation and the U.S. Department of Agriculture. At this point, I would like to acknowledge the ISAAA team who really worked on this primer, especially led by Miss Sabrina Bugnosen. Wiwai, open your camera. She is Wiwai. If this is the first time you get to know her face, that's her. So she's the one following up on all of the materials that we will be including in this primer. We have also Clem. Clem, raise your hand. And Christine is on family leave today, but we are the team of editors who put together the edits so that the primer would be in the ISAAA standards of good quality publication. And of course, to Pelpen for everything that deals with the publication compensation and all of that. So with that, thank you so much, ISAAA team. We are happy that we were able to get this brief 56 out before the 2021 ends. So you may visit our website to download the free copy of the brief. And thank you once again. Have a very wonderful day and the upcoming holidays. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Just help us to tweet and retweet so that it reaches a wider audience.
Thank you, Maha. Okay, thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye.